American Psycho, directed by Mary Harron, starring Christian Bale. A wealthy New York City investment banker executive, Patrick Bateman, hides his alternate psychopathic ego from his coworkers and friends as he delves deeper into his violent, hedonistic fantasies. It's been 20 years since the release of American Psycho, and it's still as amazing as ever. American Psycho is based on Bret Easton Ellis's 1991 novel of the same name, and originally David Cronenberg was attached to the film. But discussions fell through, and Mary Harron was brought on to direct, and she had cast Christian Bale in the lead role. Lionsgate had acquired the worldwide distribution in 1997 and temporarily replaced Harron and Bale with Oliver Stone as director and Leonardo DiCaprio portraying Patrick Bateman. DiCaprio left in favor of The Beach, and Harron and Bale were brought back. I can't imagine this film not starring Christian Bale and not being directed by Mary Harron. Harron fully understands the source material, and while she changes some aspects of the book, the overall essence of the story and the character of Patrick Bateman is fully intact. Christian Bale is one of the greatest actors working today, and in this film he is magnetic. You don't see Christian Bale in this role, you see Patrick Bateman. Bale spent several months working out by himself and then 3 hours a day with a trainer during pre-production. This was to achieve the proper physique for the narcissistic Bateman. Harron claimed Bale struggled with the role until he noticed Tom Cruise in an interview on Late Night with David Letterman, being struck by Cruise's energy and, quote, intense friendliness with nothing behind the eyes. Bale also used Nicolas Cage's performance in Vampire's Kiss as inspiration for the role. The film takes place in 1987. We follow wealthy Patrick Bateman, who is a New York investment banker, whose life revolves around dining at trendy restaurants while keeping up appearances for his fiancée Evelyn and his circle of wealthy and shallow associates, most of whom he dislikes. Bateman describes the material accoutrement of his lifestyle, including his morning exercise, beautification routine, designer wardrobe, and expensive furniture. He also discusses his music collection in scholarly detail. Patrick Bateman is disconnected from reality, which in turn makes him an unreliable narrator. He's defined by consumerism and driven by consumption. Mary Harron has stated that she never intended for people to think it's all a dream, but rather keeping it ambiguous like the book does. As far as Harron is concerned, the events that happen in the film aren't all in his head, and while the film and the book contains murder, that's not what the story is about. It's about yuppie culture. The film is a mix of dark comedy and social commentary, which makes it a biting satire of the yuppie culture in the 1980s and how no one cares about anyone else but themselves. As you can probably tell, I love this film. Every performance is fantastic. There is not one weak link. The direction is fantastic, and I love the way this film is shot. The film is comprised of a lot of wide shots, and the reason why it was shot that way is to give it this kind of dreamlike feel to it. The soundtrack in itself is a character. Depending on Bateman's mood, the music will reflect that. For example, when Bateman is playing The Greatest Love of All by Whitney Houston, Bale and Harron thought of this as Bateman's spiritual moment, whereas the scene with the call girl and the prostitute, the music by Phil Collins, is his attempt at being romantic. Even his obsession with videotapes is integral to the story, because those videotapes are a window into how he's trying to learn how to have a sexual encounter or getting inspiration from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. American Psycho is endlessly quotable, with quotes like, "Do you like Huey Lewis in the news?" and "I have to return some videotapes." Even the menus of the restaurants that they go to are humorous, like the mud soup and the charcoal arugula, or the pork loin with lime jello. And those types of menu items are also in the book. There are also so many memorable scenes, like the scene with Paul Allen, the insanity of Patrick Bateman getting ready to kill Paul Allen and then ultimately hacking him up with an axe. Bateman's motivation is based on his jealousy of Paul Allen. Allen can get a reservation at Dorsia on Friday night. He has a bigger, nicer apartment than Patrick Bateman, but what really sets off Patrick Bateman is Paul Allen's business card, which is yet another genius scene in this film, and it's also a scene picked up straight from the book. It also shows how similar each of the men are and how it's hard to distinguish each one of them apart. One of the craziest scenes in the film is the scene where Patrick Bateman is running down a hallway in his apartment building, wielding a chainsaw, and is only wearing a pair of sneakers, chasing after the prostitute that he's named Christy, as well as one of the final scenes where he has a shootout with police, blows up their car with his handgun, and ultimately confessing his crimes to his supposed lawyer who mistakes him for someone else, thinks it's a big joke, and that he just had dinner with Paul Allen in London. By the end of the film, we're wondering what's real and what's not, and Bateman is denied his catharsis. With all that said, American Psycho gets an instant classic from me. I've watched this numerous times, and every single time there's something new to love about it. 20 years later, it's aged incredibly well, and if you haven't revisited this film in a long time, I highly encourage you to check it out again. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for coming by, and if you'll excuse me, I have to return some videotapes.